Okay, welcome back everyone to the biggest waste of time on the internet. Today is a big day, very exciting. We are going to begin building the fadeaway fenders for our custom 1953 Chevy truck. So I've been sizing up these Buick doors here, and they're tantalizingly close to the shape we actually need to create our fadeaway fenders here. And my brain tells me there's no possible way any of this is going to work, but Vile Kyle is telling me to at least try. Now, before you get all upset about me cutting up these pristine, rare Buick doors, some pirate has already taken it upon himself to butcher the top of these doors off, possibly to fit them inside his car. I don't know what the backstory is here. Like, I don't know. Man, doesn't that just frost you when people wreck stuff like this? But anyways, damage is already done, so these doors are already junk. So I figure, seeing as how they're here, we might as well at least try doing something with them. If nothing else, they'll be a good spark show and we'll make some excellent content. And the internet loves the failures. So I'm just grinding along the edge here until it starts to split apart. You can see there's now a gap here. So that means the seam or the skin has been separated from itself. Normally I use a 7 or 8 inch body grinder for this, but I'm out of big grinding discs, so I'm just using my little 3 inch one. But normally you would want to use a bigger grinder because this is obviously gonna, kind of leave waves and it takes longer. But in this case, I'm not reusing this edge if we even use this at all, so it doesn't matter. Before we get too carried away, I'm just gonna template this radius here. I do want the rear of the door to have rounded corners, and what better way to have rounded corners than to copy the exact radius from a General Motors door. I don't know if I should be pleased with this or deeply concerned, but this is something that actually appears to be workable. As you can see, we're a little short this way, but I'm not even concerned about that because this roll here, this is the easy part, and I can actually take this and fold it over and manipulate this and re-roll this top section to get a closer match. Believe it or not, but this part up here, this curved area, that's the easy part. The hard part is this flat area, at least for me with the equipment I have and the abilities that I have. Getting this right is quite challenging, and it's not just a flat piece of metal. It's everything on a vehicle is a crowned panel, meaning it has curve in both directions. So my dilemma, I guess, is do I cheat and work with this? With this, I have a few dents to knock out and a few trim holes to weld up. Or Do I make a new door skin completely out of 18 gauge like I was originally planning to do and use this English wheel? And my experience with this is it's not ideal for doing large flat panels. I find that I don't get the surface quality that I'm after, and it takes a lot of finish work to actually get a nice final product. So I'm leaning towards using this. I'm thinking before I get too committed to it, the next step is just to strip it down, clean it up, make sure this is even usable and there's no surprises. I don't think there's going to be any surprises, and the bottom's rusted, but I don't need the bottom. I only need like that part of it. So I did discover some autobody archaeology here. You can already see these file marks here. Can you see that? These ones are a lot deeper. And right here we actually have some lead. And this is old school bodywork 101. On the inner structure, right where that leaded patch is and the file marks are, you can see where they basically chiseled a hole on the inner door frame to fit a chisel in to knock out the damage. And I don't know if it's going to show up too good right now, but if you see, there's all these little sharp marks on the inside of the metal here where the lead and the file marks are. And what that's from is from them using their chisel or whatever they were using to knock out the damage from that hole they blasted in the door. So my only concern with this is how much metal they took out of this area when they were filing it and whatever. Other than that, that's kind of the only problem area that I can really see. So I think it's still worth stripping this down and seeing what we have to work with. So I just kind of laid out where or how much of this I actually need, and there's still plenty of room for me to tip the edge here and hammer it over and do a hemmed edge all the way around the door. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. And we got the door stripped down and not really any surprises. We got a dent here we got to knock out and a couple door dings in here. And then this old repair here, actually better than I was expecting. Actually a pretty decent old repair. There is a dent here that's unrelated that happened after, so that's what this is. But you can see again, this was a crease and they plucked it out the best they could and then filed it, and there's still some slight divots where the crease were, and they just filled that with some heavy lacquer primer. And then where they couldn't get to the back, they just put a little bit of lead on the edge here. And when we go on the inside here, you can see they're pretty heavy pick marks all through here. But again, for an old school repair, this is actually pretty good quality. And considering they probably only had maybe a couple hours to fix this dent here. And so, yeah, always interesting to find these old repairs. If we go over to this door that we fixed in the last episode, remember there's a big crease running through here. Now I'm going to move on to this crease here. You can see it's quite a bad crease. If you look at the repair I did, isn't any better than the one they did probably 70 years ago. So you can still see where the crease was here. There's still a few little marks and whatever. And then at the end here, I couldn't or didn't bother to get it out all the way. And so this would have to be leaded in theory. Now, I haven't done any filing on this or anything, or any heavy pick hammering, but again, you know, they probably only had a couple hours to fix this, and I probably spent, I don't know, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, but it was more time than they probably spent on this to get the same result. And I also had to actually physically remove the door skin to fix this. So yeah, props to whoever did this back in the day. It's a neat old repair, but I am going to have to take the lead out and finesse it a little bit more just because, well, I can't have lead here for what we're going to be doing. I will say one thing about those old-time bodymen is they sure seem to like their ice picks. Like, looks like they had this one sharpened out to full kill mode. That's pretty harsh there. Oh well. Time to start welding up all the trim holes in the door. So the way I prefer to tackle these trim holes, these ones are rectangular kind of, or oval I guess you'd say. Yeah, oval. So I start by cutting out rectangular strips from this piece of Pontiac door, which is the same thickness as this door. I find if I use like 18 gauge or whatever, it's a bit more difficult to finish it out because the 18 gauge is thicker than this door, which is 19 gauge. So once I cut out the rectangles there, I fabricate these little giblets here, which fit inside of these holes. And for that, all I do is I just cut them down using the aviation shears and then just finish the edges out with a file. And then to hold everything in place, all I do is I set them in the hole, and on the back side, I just put a piece of masking tape. Furnace tape works better because it doesn't start on fire, but I don't have any furnace tape, so this works too. I only leave the tape there for the first tack weld, and then the tape usually starts on fire, and then I just peel it off. And then once I have one tack weld holding this, I can just manipulate these and get the rest of them tack welded in, and then it's pretty straightforward from there. There's a few different ways to do this. This is just the way that I do, using the materials and my own personal preferences. So I did spare you the process of making these little plugs because it's quite boring. So you're welcome, but I just thought I'd explain what I'm doing here. Now I know some folks will just say, just slap a piece of aluminum or copper on the backside and take a MIG welder and splorg it all up. And I prefer putting metal in these holes, even if I am going to be MIG welding them shut. The final result is a lot cleaner than just ending up with a bunch of weld plugging these holes. It's easier to hammer it back out, but again, you could do this however you want. Bless your heart. Doesn't bother me, but this is just the way I do it. Okay, well, off camera I spent a couple more hours tuning this thing up, and for once I'm not completely disgusted with what I've done. If you remember right, in the last video, this thing was hammered. It was smashed in with a forklift. It's all creased through here. There's a whole pile of damage in the whole back area here. Perspective here with a straight edge. There's quite a big dinger in it there. And this entire door is chock full of dings and dents from other previous parking lot incidents. And we got it worked out to the point where it's not perfect, but it's certainly as good, if not better, than anything I've ever made on the English wheel. And I got it done in less time than it would take me to build something with the equipment that I have. Now, I'm not going to blame the equipment because that's kind of a cop-out, but we'll blame the operator. So, yeah, anyways, I think this will work just fine, and it's straight enough where we don't have to make excuses for it. If we're going to use garbage, at least get it to where we don't have to make excuses for why it's not as good as anything else. So call that a win, and we'll move on to the next step. So I'll try to explain what exactly is going on here for anybody new or anybody who's kind of forgotten. Earlier in this project, I sculpted out these fender extensions just out of foam and plaster and Bondo. So that I could figure out my shapes and figure out my door edges, and just it was better or easier to do this than to build everything out of metal and then decide I don't like it. And then what happened is, originally I had like 1953 Chevy quarter panels on the back, and then I found these 49 Cadillac quarter panels, which I like a lot better. So then I grafted those on, and in order to get those on, I had to quickly modify this, which basically meant I had to kind of cut things apart and just kind of fandangle them a little bit, just so I could get this on to get a visual. And in that process, we ended up with a pretty ferocious low or shallow area through here. At the time I was in a rush, and I just wanted to get the visual of the Cadillac quarter panel in place, so I didn't have time to go back and revisit this area and repair it. And then in the past 5 or however months it's been, this also got moved around and kicked around in my garage, and some drunk idiot may have crashed into it once or twice. And now it's all quite badly beaten up in this area. Again, it's low, it's cracking, and there's a big high spot here. All that being said, at this stage, I don't know if it's worth my time to re-sculpt out this whole area and build it back up, or if I'm better off just proceeding on with building a more conventional buck. I kind of already have the information I need from this area of it, so I think it might be a waste of time and materials to re-sculpt all this and then just cut it off and throw it away. Like, I think I can work around it, but what I can't work around is the big high spot that ended up here. So that's what I did, is I just shaved it down a little bit so that I can kind of fandangle things in place now. But I realize this is just like the insane ramblings of a lunatic. This probably doesn't make any sense. Long story short here, this served its purpose well. I'm glad I did it, but I think it's time to start moving on to the metal fabrication. This front fender section is actually still useful to me though. This is all foam and plaster as well, so I'm going to have to build from the fender from basically here back, so I can still pull information from here for building my metal panels, but everything from here back is starting to kind of become redundant, I think. had to slightly reformulate my plan here. Plan A version 2.0 was to get the buck for this door framed out, and then I was going to start making the skin fit this, and then I was going to start modifying the passenger skin to fit on the buck here. Problem is, in order to create the buck for the other side, I need to pull some more profiles off the rear of this to transfer that information over to my buck. And as I mentioned though, the rear of this is shallow and wavy, so I don't have the information here to pull an accurate buck. So then I'm going to start guessing and just trying to compensate for everything. And as soon as you start guessing, then the problems start to pile up. I still think it's going to be a waste if I have to start reshaping and resculpturing this area. Not to mention, I don't have enough materials to make that happen right now. So now that I've made the executive decision to modify these preformed door skins, I got to thinking, well, we should start with the driver's side and get this driver's side door skin fixed onto here in the place where it needs to be, and then I can profile that, and then I can make my buck for the other side. So I need to start modifying this area here and get that roll into it, get rid of this crease here. So you saw me making a paper template of the side there, and what this is going to do is it's going to tell me how much of this door skin I need. And I'm not going to trim the bottom or the back or anything else right now, but I will trim this top area here just so I'm not having to work a whole bunch of extra material as I'm reshaping this. Change of plans again. I just laid this out here, and it looks like I actually need a fair amount of the material on here, at least at the front section. At the back it kind of tapers off, but what I'm thinking is I'm just going to start folding this whole thing over as one, and then when I get it closer to being folded over, then we'll lay the pattern back on it again and then start trimming it back to fit. Finally broke down yesterday and picked up a torch head thingy for the MAP Pro gas. I think probably saw when I was trying to melt the lead out of this that the torch kept like flaming back and going crazy. See, a while back I picked up one of these for propane only because I was being cheap, and I saw it said propane only, and I said to myself, well, what do these idiots know? And it did work for a little while, but this is too hot for the internal seals or something like that, and it's been acting up lately. So I decided, rather than get myself blowed up or set a fire, this is probably a cheaper alternative. Sometimes the warning labels on things are there for a reason. I'll admit I don't really have a good plan for folding this back, so we're just going to start by heating up along this break here, just to get the molecules moving around. Anytime you have a sharper break, the metal's going to be more work hardened than around it, so we just want to kind of get things relaxed and moving around again. And we'll just start crudely bending all this back, and hopefully we don't completely botch it up. So I just got this curly bent back into shape, and it actually worked out reasonably well. I know what you're saying, wow, this looks like garbage, Kyle. How could you say it working out well? Well, what's happened here is when this door skin was stamped out at the factory, this was all stamped in one piece, obviously, and as it was drawn out and whatever, this area ended up with some stretch in it. So that's what we're looking at here, is that now that we folded this back, what we're dealing with is this waviness along the edge, and that indicates that this needs to be shrunk to get those ripples out of it. So before I start shrinking it though, I just want to go over this and clean off any remaining paint or rust particles on here, just so we're not grinding that stuff into it when we start shrinking it. And then we'll get this edge flattened back out and probably start running it through the wheel to kind of help blend everything out. And yeah, overall though, things are going according to plan so far. So you can see the ruffles are starting to come out of this now. Key with this is moderation, so we're just going to do a little of this and a little of that until it starts to get to where we need to be. I'm going to just do some more hammering here to kind of help this come around a little bit more now that we're not fighting, you know, such a dramatic thing. And then we'll just keep going back and forth until we're starting to feel like we're getting somewhere. So what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of trying to roughly trim back some of the unnecessary material off of here so that I can fit it on the buck here a little better. The downside to this strategy here is that you know, normally I would like the buck to be removable so that I can kind of leave this edge long and then trim it to fit till the end, but that's not really possible because this is all kind of just glued in place right now. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter a whole lot if this isn't accurately, super perfectly trimmed, because my plan for this whole thing, I don't know if I mentioned it yet or not, but I don't like doing edge welds. A lot of times when fadeaway fenders were added on in the past, they would just edge weld it along here. And the problem with that is there's no way to correct the shrinkage that occurs when you're welding. So what can happen a lot is that heat will go into the path of least resistance, and it'll end up making this panel wavy. And if you actually look at a lot of pictures of old Kustoms that have had fadeaway fenders welded on, you can see the doors are like this, even in the old black and white pictures. And nowadays we have Bondo, so I mean we can fill that, but I'd rather not do that. The plan is I'm actually going to de-skin the lower part of this door, so I'll just peel off the door skin up until about here and here, and then we'll have to butt weld this back on at the pillar, but we'll just de-skin it completely. There's a bunch of dents in this anyways that I have to repair, and I don't have good access to the backside. And then what I'll do is I'm going to leave about an inch or so extra material from where this joins on below here, and then I'm going to run that through the tipping die and the bead roller and tip that edge so it'll be about an inch out from here, and it'll be tipped up. And then I'll have to run it through the stretcher to get the crown back into the door. Then what I'll do is that seam is going to get butt welded, and then because the skin will be off, I can hammer and dolly that weld out nicely, and we won't have to sculpt anything. We won't have to get in with the grinder and try to grind in this edge. We don't have to worry about warping anything. So in the long run, it'll be faster. I'll be able to do a better job of repairing the dents in this upper part of the door. And overall, it's, you know, it is a little destructive to take the skin off, and I wasn't originally planning on that. I was thinking I was just going to edge weld it, but the more I thought about it, I can't do it. I can't do it. Some things I'm okay with cutting corners on. Actually, a lot of things I'm okay with cutting corners on, but this just isn't going to sit right with me. So I would rather spend the extra little bit of time and do a little better job, but that's not going to happen in this episode. So that's why it doesn't matter if my trim line on the fadeaway isn't totally perfect to here. If it's a little off or whatever, I've got that wiggle room because we're going to be tipping this edge anyway, so there'll be plenty of material there for a nice weld seam. It's looking like I'm gonna have to trim off probably another just over half an inch off of here, so I can get this to lay against the buck a little tighter. I can also tell by the way it's bulging up here that I have some more shrinking to do in this area. So the challenge here is it's kind of like the cart before the horse or whatever. And the hardest part here is just kind of taking the first step. Like, I don't want to trim too much. And even though we're going to be tipping the edge out here, like if we start getting too carried away, like I don't want to have to tip out like a 2-inch flange or whatever out of this thing. Like that's a bit excessive, or, you know, there's all kinds of ways we could screw this up. And I'm hoping we don't find out too many new ways of screwing it up anyways. Problem is we'll kind of dedicate ourselves to doing this one way, and then discover that, well, the way we decided is actually the wrong way. And then the internet will tell us something completely different. And I mean, I guess it's only metal, so it doesn't really matter how bad we screwed up. We can always fix it or throw it away and start over. I had a brain thought here. I'm thinking before I do any more cutting, I should do a little bit more shrinking here. Because every time I shrink something, it's going to change the way it fits on here. And I just, you know, I don't want to end up cutting too much off. So a little of this and a little of that will get us there faster than a whole lot of something. And you end up with a whole lot of nothing. Just a quick warning here for anyone with sensitive hearing or who's wearing headphones. At the end of this clip, you're going to want to turn down your volume for the rest of the video or adjust it accordingly. I'm about to start a sound experiment with a new microphone, and it's probably going to be quite a bit louder. So you've been warned. So here we go. Brace yourself. Just running it through the wheel now. I suspect there's still going to be some more shrinking and what have you, but again, just doing everything in slow, easy steps here. I am trying a bit of a experiment with the sound right now, so if you can hear me better, let me know, or if it's absolutely terrible, let me know as well. I finally broke down and bought one of those wireless microphones. I've always just compensated by yelling and then turning up the sound volume while I'm editing, but it still does get very echoey in here. And I realize that it's probably not always easy for people to hear what I'm trying to say. So I thought we'd try out one of these stupid microphones now. I've always tried to keep things fairly simple on this channel, because I've heard too many horror stories about sound not getting recorded or video footage getting lost. As soon as you start getting too much going on with the whole technology thing, you start running into all kinds of problems. We have a bit of an issue here. All this garbage is in my way. Perfect. Let's get this out of the way here. One thing I've noticed about these microphones is a lot of them are quite sensitive to the point where you can just like hear the person's heavy breathing and hear them hacking and yakking and swearing under their breath and all other things that you probably don't need to hear. Who knows? Maybe that's what I need to do to be a successful YouTuber. You guys need to hear me breathing and saying offensive things under my breath, which normally you can't hear when I'm just doing the sound normally, but now you'll all be able to get offended by the things that I have to say. Won't that be fun? If this does work out and you like the sound better with this thing, I guess, again, let me know. Don't get too attached to it, because if it screws up, the second it screws up, it's going straight in the trash, and we'll just go back to yelling like a maniac and just making do with the sound that we have. I figure we've been doing YouTube for long enough now that we should probably try to improve the production quality at least a little bit. Just using very light pressure here. As I said before, it's best to kind of approach everything with moderation. You don't want to go to full kill with this thing. By that I mean torquing it right down so you've got like maximum pressure on it, because then what happens is, well, things get out of hand and you just end up with a whole bunch of wheel marks in it, which are extremely difficult to remove. And we also don't want to overstretch anything. I'm just trying to kind of roll the edge over and smooth out all the nonsense from when we bent things back. So at this point, I'm not trying to get anything perfect. I'm just kind of getting it roughed in, and then once we get it fitting better onto the buck, then we can start worrying about smoothing things out a little better. And every few minutes I head over here again and test fit it, make sure we're not things aren't getting too out of hand. And I can already see that I've got some more trimming to do along this edge. Again, this is the problem with having the buck molded directly to the body, but you know, it is what it is. We will make it work, so we don't really have much choice. I think I am going to trim a little bit more off of it now, so we're just gonna try to find my Sharpie. There it is. Just gonna kind of eyeball it here. Yep. Once I get this trimmed up a little better, I'm gonna jam a couple of screws in it of some sort. Don't really have anywhere to cleco to because it's all just made out of foam. So things are looking promising, but we are a little glorpy and glumpy here kind of in the areas where we had to tack it with our kick shrinker. It's still going to need some more shrinking, but at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to attempt to use the shrinking disc here to kind of blend it all out and smooth it out. It's a little less aggressive than the kick shrinker, so I don't want to, go too far with the kick shrinker and make a mess. So I prefer to just let the metal cool naturally with the shrinking disc. I know a lot of people like to quench it, but I find I actually get better results if I just let it do its thing. The risk of quenching it with water or with air or whatever is if you have a lot of shrinking to do, you run the risk of work hardening the metal. I'm not super paranoid about work hardening with mild steel, but why go through all the struggle of torturing it by quenching it and whatever if you don't have to? Like, it's better to just let it do its thing. The other problem with quenching this with water is, well, then you get water running everywhere, and this is all bare metal, so you come out the next day and it's covered in rust, and then you got to clean all the rust off. And why make a mess and then the floor's wet and you're laying in water? I know somebody will say, oh, you can just do this and the other thing, but again, just adding an unnecessary step in my opinion. And I find with a shrinking disc, using air to quench it isn't all that effective either, because the shrinking disc, the benefit of it is it's a large disc, it's a stainless steel disc, and it's creating friction on the metal when you run across it, and it's contacting a large area. So with an air gun, you can only quench one area at a time. So then you're unevenly quenching it, which is going to affect how the metal shrinks. And we want it to all kind of shrink all at once. We don't want to, create hot and cold spots or whatever. Things are actually going surprisingly well. I do want to tweak the back of this a little bit more. You can see here it's kind of wanting to bulge up when I go to fit it onto the buck. So I'm just going to do a little bit more shrinking here along the back, and hopefully that'll kind of get us to where we need to be, or closer to where we need to be anyways. Back and forth, back and forth. That's all this is just repetition. Repetition and a little patience and a little bit of insanity. You can pretty much do anything that you set your mind to. So, definitely improve the back here. I think maybe just a touch more, and yeah, should be good. Head back over to our shrinking device here. Just kind of eyeball it, I guess. I don't know. Here, one of those. One of those. One of these. Not do anything at all? Probably not. But that's okay. Oh yeah. Mint. A little bit of the old hand technique here. Oops. Easy now. Really, that's probably about as close as it needs to be for now. I can't really see any benefit of carrying on with this much further. Probably figure out a way to attach this now, and then we can take a look at it from afar. So I guess the downside of the plaster and Bondo buck is that we don't have a good way of really attaching our panel to the buck itself. So what I'm going to do here is just I made a couple of little tabs, and I'll cleco them onto the door, the upper door, which is still steel, and then hopefully that'll allow us to do the, oh, for gosh sakes. Just going to tack weld it to these little tabs that we clecoed onto the door. That's how we will get this attached at the top. I don't have any better ideas, so hopefully it works. Like so. Try not to light the foam and plaster on fire. Come on. Just perfect. You know, every time I turn the camera on, things start going wrong. You know, old. I think I'm just gonna try to attach the bottom with some clamps for now. You can see it is a little off right here, but this is where the damage was, and we have some more repairs to do, so I'm just kind of just roughly tossing it on for now, just to kind of see what's going on. What in the world have I done here? Oh boy. Alright, we'll just clamp that very lightly because I'm pretty sure that's made out of plaster. Okay, well, this isn't looking completely hopeless. Actually, very promising. Now, I think this episode is getting a little bit long-winded, so I think we're going to just start wrapping things up here. What's going to happen next is I'm going to figure out a little better way of attaching this so it's a little more secure into this this buck here. And once we get that done, then I have a lot more smoothing to do along the top here, and I have some more shrinking needed here as well. It's still quite high here, so it'll need some tweaking here and there. And then we also have some dents to finish repairing in this area, and some door dings and stuff like that. We'll also have to weld up the trim holes like we did in the other door, and start trimming this panel so that it's not oversized. Now I am leaving it oversized intentionally, and that'll become clear why I'm doing that in the next episode. But actually, the nice thing is when I do go to cut this door edge back, a lot of the really harsh pick marks, if not all of them, will be getting cut off. So that's a bonus there, which means, you know, if everything continues to go well, we'll end up with a door skin that is just as good as anything that could have been built by me anyways. So that's a win. You can see again our line down here, roughly where the bottom edge of this is going to be. There will be a rocker panel underneath this, and then at the back again, you know, it'll be getting cut through here for the rear door shut line. Pretty happy that it looks like we're going to be able to get away with using this preformed skin. That's going to save me a lot of fabrication and just time on the wheel that and struggling. So total win here. Now, as far as the back panel goes, and the front panel goes, we are still going to have to fabricate that. And the reason for that is I can't just weld junk on from another car, because I want this to all be a continuous tangent sweep here, and I don't want it going in and out and in and out, and that's what's going to happen if we start welding stuff on from other cars. So the way I'm going to get around from using junk from cars on the door skin is now the door, I can use that kind of as my gauge for building this panel and that back panel. And when I'm building these panels, I can make sure that I have them flowing nicely into this panel here. So it's all kind of a continuous line here, and it's not, you know, dipping in and out, because that never looks very good. Now, if I was ever going to do something ridiculous and stupid like this project again, I believe it would be wise to invest in a set of sweeps, and that would just make things so much easier for laying out all these panels and all the shapes of the panels, rather than just trying to power eye it. And now at this point, we're far enough into it where we just kind of have to work with what we have, and we can kind of work off of everything that's already there. But it would have made things a lot easier to have a set of sweeps when we started laying all this out. But now we know for the next time, and when the next time rolls around and I continue doing things the hard way, then we'll say again, I should have bought some sweeps. That would have been a good investment. But some people just never learn, you know. Well, that about wraps it up for this one, and I just wanted to apologize for this episode being a lot more long-winded and talky than usual, as well as the sound things with our microphone experiment. I kind of did that intentionally. I made it longer because longer videos I make more revenue from usually, and I'm trying to get some money set aside so that I can upgrade the lighting in the garage again. I realize that it's quite dismal and dark and unpleasant in here. I did upgrade some of the lighting this summer, but now more of my lights since then have burnt out. So I would like to get some more LEDs in here. But of course, all that costs money. And the other thing I would like to upgrade is my headphones that I use for editing. Those are on their way out as well. So we're gonna have to invest in a new set of headphones very soon here. And of course, you know, you fix one thing and 10 other things break. So just that's my selfish thing I'm doing, is I made this episode longer and left in a lot more stuff that I normally edit out, just so that I would hopefully, you know, earn a little bit more so that I can invest it back into the show and hopefully make things a little bit more watchable for you folks in the future. I appreciate you kind of sticking with us through the rough, unpolished segments of this. And I also apologize for any issues with the sound with the microphone in this episode. Probably one thing I've discovered now that I'm editing this video is that it's no longer necessary for me to yell all the time. The past 2 years, I've trained myself to yell every time I talk when I'm making a video, and you don't have to do that when you have a microphone attached to you, as it turns out. So I apologize to anybody who is wearing headphones. The sound in this is probably going to be pretty awful, but let me know in the comments if you like the improvement with the microphone, and if you like it when I'm kind of working and talking at the same time. If that's, you know, something you prefer or something you'd like to see more of, we can certainly make that happen. Anyways, I'm going to finish editing this video, and then I'm going to get back to work on this door skin here, and we'll continue refining and messing around with that in the next episode, and probably start possibly building the buck for the other side. And it's just a lot of going back and forth, but we're making good headway now, I believe. So looking forward to seeing some more progress on this truck, as I hope you all are. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.